Superhero video games have always been a hairy topic in the business since the beginning. On paper, you have these dominant powerhouses who could use any living being we have on Earth as a wet wipe. Then, when you play Uncanny X-Men, that thought flips on its head. How could you take any of these people seriously when they're all built like Wario? Would a player really tear their shirt in excitement when watching Warlords in the caliber of Wolverine utilize their hidden ability of nudging forward slightly as an attack, struggling to take down slinkies and bugs? This guy was getting absolutely sloshed by both parties in mere seconds, while his trusty dusty buddy Cyclops had his lasers bent back through his rectum. It was a pathetic display from the squadron. I thought pairing a 6'3" hunk of a man with a 5'3" dork would have been an unparalleled dynamic duo. Apparently, I was wrong thinking that. Well, to be honest, I didn't want to pick a teammate, period, but you don't have a choice. You choose your character and a pal to play alongside them. Not fully sure on the reasoning why, all they do is aid in introducing your brain to a realm equivalent of getting rocked in the skull with a bat, sending you into endless confusion during the first few minutes of playtime. I always find it incredible when this happens. Simply attempting to fathom what was going on when I was scrapping with enemies was a challenge. And I mean, it's kinda hard when you don't put a health bar on the main screen. Instead, you plop it in the pause menu, a galaxy brain play for sure. Why would a player ever need to know when they'll visit the Shadow Realm at a second's notice? Why would the player ever need to know anything, frankly? Just make more brainiac choices like sticking in power-ups that are esoteric hot dogs that I believe are supposed to be a shield of some kind. Back in the days of prime simplicity, wouldn't you want to make your game be understandable at a glance? I myself have never thought Nathan's hot dog equal life extension. If you ever see how those shits are made, eating one becomes a no-go, even for meat enthusiasts. Unless you're a person who can never have enough lard traveling down your esophagus, pre-prepared to gobble up a pack of 8. I don't know, I just think they're as disgusting as traversing a level in Uncanny X-Men. Seriously, the lack of knowledge when it pertains to how healthy you are makes each of these levels become a lot more difficult than they otherwise would be. Enemies respawn infinitely, constantly chasing you down, so if you're playing a melee character, good luck. The best thing to do for me was just to grab every item I saw, cause why not? Each of the enemies I was able to rough up would deliver them on a golden platter as I tried completing my goal of running around aimlessly, hoping I don't get my floors mopped. Since when you get destroyed, that's it. You need to restart the level you were playing on, or if you die before your teammate, you get to take control of them. Which is a rarity. They have the brain of a grown adult who struggles to read 5-letter words. You'll typically see them hanging out at the bottom of your screen or wandering around doing nothing. I can't wrap my mind on why you'd keep this feature included if the AI functions this poorly. What's the use of forcing a player to have an overgrown, plastic-looking monkey that does absolutely nothing to help in fights, holding your screen progression back, or dies instantly? They're the embodiment of deadweight. It's surreal the Uncanny X-Men was actually a person's childhood. A kid would come home from school, sit on their ass, wanting to spend their time with what they assumed would be great, powerful characters, but with what they were given, it's borderline impossible to think such a thing. How could a human being realistically have a knee slapper of a time with the shenanigans brought forth? I couldn't be bothered to finish a single level, and there's only 4. Each of them gave me the fat kid to a cookie store treatment to his insides, putting all my characters into endless chokeholds, making me lose all my lives, door dashing me a game over. I genuinely love giving these types of games a whirl, ones that are so simple yet so terrible. Completing a level in this game is similar to swallowing a box of screws. And yes, I am aware the NES is notorious for having games that are challenging, whether that is from good game design or not. The expectation is that you are required to stomach all the limitations with a smile, regardless if the decisions made are beyond poor. It's one of the butt plugs for this generation. In some cases though, there are games that do lean more in the direction of becoming terrible because of the difficulty, even if said game has no glaring pig-ass pieces stuffed in. A perfect example a lot of people use is Silver Surfer, probably one of the most infamous 2D shooter titles of all time, where you play as everyone's favorite sentient Charlie Brown Halloween costume, soaring through various environments that might as well be the smokestack smog hovering above China. Silver Surfer is one of those games where you need to play it 500,000 times, repeating the levels over and over again, accruing the knowledge of each and every moment that is going to transpire, knowing exactly what your enemies ate for dinner, allowing you to decipher how much energy they're going to exert, the speed they're going to move, and the path they're going to take. You are required to comprehend if the enemy is going to be an intergalactic aerial Michael Phelps who will slash through the air with their forearms, or if they're fresh out of a wheelchair from stem cell treatment, walking for the first time in over a decade. You truly won't know this stuff until you cook your flesh to a chair, endlessly playing, never showering, no teeth brushing, no cooking food, ordering McDonald's only, searing a hole in your wallet, until your heart gives out from the genetically modified nutrients clogging up your arteries from Quarter Pounder with Cheese number 94. So I guess that begs the question, is Silver Surfer actually a horrendous game? The answer is probably yes and no. If you compare it to X-Men, a game that is completely worthless with zero justifications to be made on why it's a swell time, there's no competition. But if you look at it individually, there are pieces that make you question reality. Like how you cannot touch a single wall or object with a plethora of them not being clear whether you'll die if you graze it. This makes avoiding the 10 billion cheese balls flying all over the screen or just moving around insurmountable at times. Another Chinese water torture moment you'll consistently experience is how if you don't find Dreiger during a level to whirlwind underneath your surfboard, taking down enemies is miserable. A lot of them tank buckets of damage, so without this thing, if you weren't born as the fingering machine to rapidly press the shoot button as if your life depended on it, go grab a shovel, stand in the backyard, and begin digging your grave. On the flip side, there are aspects that are really good about Silver Surfer. The animations and graphics for the era do look appealing. The person who composed the music is the furthest thing from a bitch, and the core gameplay itself is fluid for the time. Your main issue would be your own willpower for how much of the hogwash you'd want to deal with. I'm not in the campsite for having the most patience in history to indulge myself into a game like this, but honestly, I'd rather play one that is essentially tearing your fingernails off with your teeth over one that can put you to sleep after ingesting lethal dosages of caffeine. A not so shocking and common move in the reptile family tree, known to us as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, depending on where you're from. On the DS, these lovely guys got beat 'em up number 215 called Ninja Turtles Arcade Attack, having the most bland, apathetic gameplay that could be mustered by a so-called group of talented folk. If you asked a person who has never sniffed the plastic scent of a new Turtles toy, never built a Ninja Turtle Lego set, whatever activity revolving around them that you'd be able to come up with, the individual being questioned on what a Turtles game is about, this would presumably be what they'd come up with. All you're doing is fighting 3 enemies at a time, performing your 2 different 3-hit combo attacks, mashing and mashing and mashing, sending each of the bandits on screen to the dungeon in 15-minute stretches. Why the levels are so long is beyond me. It's hard to say any enjoyment is shoveled up off the pavement from them. I think it would have been nice if we could have tried somewhat if your idea was to make the levels be a marathon, maybe let those juices flow to come up with enticing ideas for the player to envelop themselves into, instead of your game becoming repetitious and stale after the time it takes to microwave Orville Redenbacher's. Was there a widespread allergy in the office towards ensuring the player could pull off unique combos to be creative with their shits? Will we drop dead if the player could unlock new combos or upgrade their turtles? I don't see a reason for not adding another layer to gameplay this flaccid in the year 2009. The only quote-unquote variation you get is with the turtles themselves. They all apparently have differing statistics that aren't noticeable in game. Each of them play the same, they all have the same range, the same amount of attacks, all taking 4 million hits to die, with a trash can pizza nearby to fill up your health, even if you did happen to come close to submitting to the Grim Reaper. I guess the real reason behind this hardship is that it's not easy being green. Hulk himself knows this quite well, especially during his Tales of the Pantheon saga for PlayStation. I've never been the biggest fan of the Hulk. To me, he's always been a bland, one-dimensional, boring-ass piece of broccoli with legs, and I'm sure if a person got a lick of the Pantheon saga as their first gander at him, they'd probably feel the same way. What have they done to our poor green machine? He's a 5'1" fake natty who painted himself green, having his Mario Party Waluigi police escapee run cycle, punching in the most comical fashion imaginable with his nubs, getting wiped away by little ships that he has no chance against. It's a lot to take in so quickly. I kinda assumed my favorite fitted crayon would be able to grab these ships by the bottom to twirl them around like a pinwheel, but he was getting eaten alive by them as I was watching the whole world explode around me. This was in the first few minutes of the game. Anywhere I went, I was getting obliterated. You get put into a spin cycle surprisingly fast while trying to meat slap a bunch of switches on walls scattered around the level to then run around trying to uncover what they activated. As you hope more floor panels don't blow you to smithereens or wall turrets won't eviscerate you to a soppy pool of mush. Anything and everything will rip you limb from limb. And when that inevitably happens, you need to restart the level from the beginning to repeat the progress you just made. I was trying my best to manhandle it all, but these ships were the most obnoxious conundrum I had. They're flying all over the place, shooting Min-Min lights, annihilating Hulk's health bar in the blink of an eye, where you need to either hope your stumpy ass aerial kicks can act as an anti-air turret, or you simply run away, completely ignoring them. With that probably being the meta tactic, honestly. It worked well enough for me until I reached a goofball named Hector, who I'm pretty sure is a boss. Mr. Our village is under attack, sire, is helicoptering around with a flail, blocking all the Mortal Kombat 2 high punches I was hurling in his direction. Shortly into it, a ship came out of nowhere, hitting me from multiple angles. Then Hector conjured some sort of angelic being with a bow and arrow, swiftly sending Hulk to hell with no chance to escape. How pathetic do you want this guy to look? Jesus Christ. I'm starting to think Brucey can't even tie his own shoelaces at this point. The game is always putting him in situations he can barely hold his own in. If none of that is enough, once I finally defeated Hector in our Battle of the Ages, they expect you to do platforming with controls that are not remotely suited for it. Hulk walks for a few seconds, then he starts sprinting at Mach 42 when he decides he's ready, making it impossible to gauge how much you need to guide yourself through the air. It's actually crazy how awful this was. I, of course, got mollywopped by physics, melting in a pool of acid, and that's it. 3 lives, you're done, restart the game. Where I instead used the password just to see what goofy nonsense would transpire later on. Unsurprisingly, not much would change if you did happen to persevere through the first gauntlet. You're continuously wailing on hooded noob cybots, ships, or whatever creatures that are tossed your way to keep doing puzzles, or more platforming obviously. Considering how enjoyable it was in level 1, why would you ever want to get rid of it? Who in their right mind would stand up and walk away from grade A horizontal ice climbing, forcing players to activate the sprinting when they hardly have room to do so, or let alone control the speed they're moving in the air? A small part of me believes the creation of this game was a hit piece of some kind. What's the sense of calling the Hulk incredible if he's portrayed as a lame-brained, toothless oaf who sucks at everything? It would be better if the incredible fella took over. I have confidence that monster could Swiffer sweep this whole game, packing it right up, slamming it into the back of a waste management truck. You might as well call his heroic companions into battle as well while you're at it. Get yourself a Sense of Right toy pack and let these forces loose, including Shrek. A character some may not consider a superhero, but with all the trials and tribulations he's been through during his lifetime, being morphed into a nasty freakazoid Martian, isolated from society, stuck wallowing in mud and backstroking through garbage, how could you not call him a hero with that level of mental willpower? Shrek is large and in charge, or some may say he is extra large when he's on the GameCube. A game that immediately holds your hand, helping you understand he is the real deal. What other disc can you stick into a console that opens up with the main character picking his fucking ear and makes belching sounds whenever you select something? Better yet, this glorious nature stems into the gameplay as well. Only in the King's universe are we able to witness a fart stun into chilly fire breath combo alongside Year 2 human combat. It's surreal how Shrek is acting more like the Hulk than the Hulk was. He's grabbing people, cracking their skulls off of Mother Nature, delivering flatulence at a moment's notice to have people fall off of trees, making them plummet 50 feet to the ground and die. It's the epitome of raw power. I was truly hoping this intense action was going to be the focal point of Shrek Extra Large's gameplay due to how grandiose it was, but sadly, no one is ever allowed to be happy. Instead of pampering ourselves with endless pleasure, we are forced to do a bunch of missions, such as babysitting 2 kickball-sized people across a fallen down tree that I knocked over to avoid a homemade Geodude defending his bridge. It was an easy task to conquer that allowed these people to work their way towards an early grave, also awarding me with a giant onion, where I then stampeded my way down a cave system, letting it rip at the bottom to incinerate that said fart cloud, blowing open a door, acquiring a picnic basket that needs to be filled up with candy. It's shit nobody wants to do. These guys missed the opportunity to create one of the most memorable games of all time. If you told the player, in this game, you can play as Shrek beating the snot out of Humpty Dumpty's children, then brush the man himself's teeth against a cobblestone wall, the name Shrek Extra Large would resonate much deeper with people. It's not to say there are zero good moments. In the mission revolving around Humpty Dumpty, you learned that he kidnapped this large bird's egg children, as they're called, to teach them how to fall off of walls. So he's essentially teaching them how to exit the Shrek-verse on their own accord. A pretty grim tale for the world of Shrek, really. Although, these captivating moments are few and far between, a majority of your time is spent sifting through the most dull apparition of life force essence you could witness, so the only purpose a player could have to participate in the extra large triathlon would be to vicariously live through Shrek's best attempt of showing society that he isn't an evil monster, watching him lay out a redemption story level by level. Which is a vision I could get behind. His big ass has shown more mental and physical prowess than half the supposed superheroes. His only issue is that he's disgusting. Shrek's in-game model gives him partially black eyes, he's always scratching his ass, his aesthetic just isn't giving off heroism. And yeah, not all quote-unquote heroes are golden stoic figures, standing mighty like Mike from Fred Nightmare Runway Neighbor. There's a reason we have the anti-hero tree, containing characters like Spawn having an enticing dark look. He's bitch-slapping pieces of wood at the start of his game, proving how he is in fact eternal. The big boss runs around in a 3D environment that quickly transitions into a one-on-one fighter. A very unexpected moment. When I peered at this hairpin turn, there's no way in hell I thought it would rival a real fighting game, nor should anyone. It's far clunkier. Spawn seems to have been wolfing down too many TV dinners with how he's moving. All I can assume while watching this is that we're supposed to be viewing his first ever scrimmage against a local thug who put up more of a challenge than I expected. Each of the ruffians you encounter have Colgate branded bones inside their hands, ready ready to crinkle up Spawn in a jiffy. But what really turns this predicament into the ultimate primeval is how health loss is permanent, with the pickups themselves being beyond scarce while also only healing a minuscule amount. So as you're handling the onslaught of ChatGPT written hoodlums geared up in their Goodwill attire, ensuring you don't take unnecessary damage is the key of survival in this jungle, which is more of a mountain climb than it sounds thanks to the liquid concrete blood Spawn has. He moves like a decrepit 152-year-old man, forcing you to play hyper passively, spamming the same few attacks on repeat, where it's still hard to fully mitigate enough damage to not make your playthrough become a slog. The only silver lining is how you can save whenever you want to, but I continuously forgot to do so. When I needed to fight this crusader from the 1400s casting illumination spells at me, it was not an easy trek when I had a pubic hair of HP. I tried backtracking the level I was playing, not finding a single health pickup, making my choices either to reload a save from years backwards, to reattempt previous fights, doing my best to bank as much health as possible, or I could open up my own black book against his bitch ass, manifesting a save state to destroy the Harbinger of Light. It was a move made with a smile, allowing me to continue forwards. Other than this hand-to-hand scuffling or any issues surrounding it, Spawn the Eternal doesn't have much going on, appearing to be a common theme with a lot of these heroic figure adjacent games. Does Spawn not have like trillions of years worth of lore behind him? Maybe a grandma's famous recipe in the back pocket? Or is this it? Spawn exists, then he activates his cape to assert alpha male authority over his opposition, occasionally stumbling into a freakish-looking monster who initially comes off as intimidating until you discover you're able to pummel the makeshift transformer into a corner, stun-locking him to death. It would have been wonderful if I was able to do something with these orbs I kept finding on the ground to at least have some deviation in battles. I tried all the fighting game inputs I'm aware of, and Spawn was casting nothing. But in reality, even if I did dig up the treasure, it wouldn't rectify the overall issue of how tedious Spawn the Eternal becomes after a short time. These fighting segments are the only real pieces of gameplay this game gives you. In between them, you're running around aimlessly in an empty world with nothing going on. You just press a few buttons here and there or jump over a trap that comes down from the ceiling, awaiting your next pathetic excuse of a battle. Never in my whole life will I be able to grasp how you can make games about larger than life figures be so tiresome, or make the character themselves come off as a wet blanket infested with bedbugs. When I'm seeing a sentient spirit Halloween decoration fold up Spawn like a pretzel while I'm watching my fists and feet go straight through him, let me be that guy at that point. Give me his adamantium rotten skin. Even this organism who came straight out of the peanuts can put me into a spin cycle. These sorts of games really make you appreciate the ones in the caliber of the Batman Arkham titles much more than previous. And speaking of Batman, that guy's got a solid amount of games to play through that are loads of fun, with a giant clump of abnormal growth weighing it all down. Batman Forever, Batman Dark Tomorrow, Batman Return of the Joker, and Batman and Robin for PlayStation. A leap into the next generation for the year 1998. When you see a new game using foreign language, calling the X button do, then you observe the protagonist struggling to exist in the confines of his own training room, flowing around with these smooth, detailed animations, that's how you know you've ascended. And for the time, that was probably a real sentiment players had. A game for console that lets you whip around the streets of Gotham, murdering goblins driving on the road, feeling like an unstoppable force behind the wheel. It for sure made players think the cookie they just bit into was going to be the greatest video game they've ever played in their life. A thought that lasted until they entered the real levels, I'll call them. That's where the curse is casted upon those said gamers. Batman and Robin uses tank controls while on foot, so you're essentially watching a killing machine move or turn slowly, making his way over to one of these snow thugs to flail his arms and legs around, exerting so much energy from them, he shatters these people into glass shards. This is a fantastic control scheme you need to deal with that was trademarked in the 90s and has aged like a slice of salmon. It of course didn't stop chaos from being ensued. I had a whole room of goons succumb to my fists and feet, with their leader Mr. Freeze coming out shortly after, doing a gymnastic cartwheel down a flight of stairs, absolutely waxing Batman's shit to the point it knocked him back to the main menu to restart the game. It was a very odd Viagra adjacent power spike. The other enemies I fought were simple enough, but Mr. Freeze runs your pockets, repeatedly slamming ice balls in your face, giving you the 1-2 knuckle sandwich with everything on it, introducing you to the carpet in seconds, while you're sitting there struggling to saddle up on the controls. You have two modes during combat, one for running, using items, and jumping, with the other strictly for fighting. It's straightforward to handle when you're battling normal enemies who aren't opening up the black box summoning demons. When you're going against enemies like this though, who are expecting you to evade his ice blasts, maneuvering around the battlefield, looking for opportunities to strike, simply trying to cycle between moving, running, jumping, using items, and attacking is a serious hurdle to overcome. So the best strategy I found seems to be the trolley gummy worm brain tactic of running at the enemy to keep hitting him, hoping he dies before you do, creating this disgustingly atrocious combat cycle that I was not looking forward to seeing how much more irritating it could possibly get. Mr. Freeze pummeled me about 7 to 8 times before I inevitably defeated the beast, allowing me to grab my Minecraft magnum opus, 1 whole hour to finish the first segment of the game. That's what I'm talking about. Once I overcame this task, I was kinda left with my Johnson in hand, questioning what I'm supposed to do next. You are given little direction on what you're supposed to do to progress the game, so I'm guessing you're expected to wander around the open world, repeatedly pulling over to pound on criminals or blow up vehicles that relentlessly chase you down in hopes of finding question marks that give you an idea of where you're required to go next. It's a very bizarre system that doesn't make much sense to me. Shouldn't this Scooby-Doo play be for side objectives? Actually, why do we not have easy access of knowing where missions are located in the first place? Why does the player need to go back to the Batcave every time they want to look for one? Why could you not put icons on the map? Or at the very least, let the player look at their map in the pause menu. Finding these interactable locations is almost infeasible on your own. When I tried, I was lucky if I found anything. I spent a majority of my exploratory power hour backstroking through a park's sewage water, or driving around hoping my tire would pop, having my Batmobile flip over and explode just so I could see something happen. The whole open world thing is kinda pointless. There isn't much of a reason for it to exist aside from looking for the aforementioned question marks. You just want to find them so you can go back to the Batcave, mark a blinking dot on your map, drive to it, then overclock your brain, prepared to accomplish whatever mission you are given, usually transpiring in areas with Crow City of Angels ass camera angles where you can hardly tell where you are or where enemies are coming from. Like, I can't even see these people. Frosty is blaring missiles at me. The game is expecting me to kill him with this little amount of health, while I have no idea if my attacks are going to land or not. I was save scumming this area since I didn't want to restart back at the Batcave to come here again, doing this entire mission over, and it took me 15 minutes because of the situation I was in. I have no clue who Frosty is or what god he infused his powers with, but he was immune to all of my weaponry and all of my items. The whole battle was pure luck whether I'd win or not. If they put a checkpoint for when you entered the building so you'd be able to restart from there, this wouldn't really be an issue, but the fact you'd need to go all the way back to the Batcave, dealing with the Mad Max fanboys on the cruise to your mission objective, starting over again anytime you die is absurd. Considering all the hardships Batman needs to deal with while just trying to move around and fight people, you'd figure he'd have at least a crumb to his name here. Apparently he doesn't, and it's mandatory law he gets socked in the mouth at every street corner. The only enjoyable part of this game is the raw idea of being able to drive around the city. What's funny though is that if you got rid of it, the game would weirdly improve. There would be no more restarting from the Batcave, moseying your way down the roads looking for clues, aimlessly driving around. The game would be more traditional, so all you'd be left with is, you know, still, either way you look at it, with or without the open world, Batman and Robin wouldn't have a casual gamer feeling ecstatic, nor would I assume the individuals who lather themselves up in Batman's oil would be ready to engage in a night-long Batman and Robin conquest. Out of all the licensed games in the world, it's shocking how many god-awful ones exist about Marvel, DC, or similar. When it comes to regular TV shows and movies, it makes a bit more sense. The world doesn't really want or need a game about Hell's Kitchen, but when it pertains to what might as well be groups of superhumans with so much to them aesthetically or related to their abilities, and you got them waltzing around like dopey, drooling from the mouth, troglodyte blockheads, tripping over their shoelaces, you can't make them look more interesting than a piece of paper, you got Shrek outclassing some of them and power levels, it's ridiculous. I didn't even mention the worst of the worst ones either, like Aquaman Battle for Atlantis, Superman 64, Fantastic Four on PlayStation, amongst the plethora of other rotting apples that can be picked off of the legendary Great Oak. It's endless, really. So if you have your own personal favorite in the glorious sphere of pathetic, heroic titles, make sure to leave them down in the comments below. Big ups to all of our channel members who go above and beyond each and every month, generously supporting the channel even further. If you would like to join them and get early access to content, hit the join button right next to the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, take very good care of yourselves, and I hope to see you all again in the next video.